Hi, Mike. Thank you for coming along. It's good to have you here today.
Thanks, Ritesh. I appreciate the invitation.
No, thank you. We will be discussing today, the importance of cybersecurity, and especially the way we have seen external threat landscape evolving, especially in last 18 months, and especially the importance of cyber intelligence and how it really helps to elevate cyber posture management for organizations. We would love to understand, a little bit what is the vision of Zuellig Pharma and some of the initiatives which you guys have been carrying.
Sure. So Zuellig Pharma is one of the largest healthcare services groups in Asia. Our purpose is to make healthcare more accessible. We provide world-class distribution, commercialisation and digital solutions to the markets in which we serve within Asia. Our company was started almost 100 years ago, and we've grown to be a $13 billion business, serving 13 markets, and we've got 12,000 employees. Our employees, our team, looks after 350,000 medical centres, whether they be doctors, hospitals, pharmacies, etc. And we work with over 1,000 clients, including the top 20 pharma companies in the world. As an organisation, we run some of the most advanced cold chain facilities to make sure that we're managing and distributing temperature-sensitive medicines through the countries we serve. Back in 2017, we established the Zuellig Health Innovation Solutions Centre here in Singapore, with a focus on really creating solutions for the region where they don't exist at the moment, whether they be around digital offerings, data, analytics, etc. But that centre's really helped to develop and has grown our offerings here in the Asian market. So starting to protect some of these things becomes more important for us as well. And I'm sure you're seeing threats in, especially at the consumer level when it comes to these types of things as well.
Yeah, and quite frankly, what we have seen, especially in the industry like pharmaceutical, logistics, surely we have seen a big escalation in cyber threats towards those industries. For some of us, it was very difficult to understand, where pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies really support the wider ecosystem. But last 15 months has really taught us that how important this industry is and why this industry has to be protected from cybercriminals.
And I think it's probably another thing you probably got more insight than I do on it, but the COVID-19 pandemic has really pushed the focus of, I know for ourselves as a business from the outside world, I've seen us in the media more and more than we would have before, but I assume that also elevates our risk.
Yeah, no, 100%. And cybercriminals have actually capitalized on this whole pandemic, right? In last 15 months, it used to be the time when their focus was all about enterprises, where they could have made the best out of their attempt. But nowadays, it's like quite flat. They're going to SMEs, they're going into small businesses,
Yep.
And it's pretty much the type of impact which they can leave. And especially if you look at healthcare industry, that is surely a focus for cybercriminals. And it's not just, cybercriminals who are financially motivated. It's also about, intellectual property. It is also about how do we get hang of PII, CII, and that is a very, very important factor which cybercriminals are trying to capitalize on.
My own team, we've been 100% work from home now for approaching 2 years.
Yeah.
But we also operate, obviously, distribution centres, etc., where a lot of staff need to come to work. But where we can, a lot of the office staff in those places have also been in and out of work from home arrangements. What does that do to the cyber risk of an organisation?
Yeah, no, it's a great question you ask, and it surely elevates the overall, attack surface of
Yep.
the organization,
Yep.
because all of a sudden, your staffs are operating out of home, and we know for a fact that home networks are not as strong as your enterprise networks. You've got a computer, you've got a router in front, and there is nothing else in between. Now, think about a situation where one of the researchers is operating out of home and he holds all the intellectual property, all the trade secret of organization. Surely that becomes a very, very easy target for cyber criminals. They do not have to now break all those barriers of enterprise. They can pretty much straight away come into endpoint which is being actually stationed in a home network.
Yep.
Now that's one of the things. I think the other thing to also look at it is cybercriminals are starting to look at how do they go about actually profiling organizations. It used to be quite difficult for cybercriminals earlier because your footprint was within the enterprise, and all they could have done is they could have taken information from social platforms or public platforms to profile their target. But given now all of us are operating from home, they've got a better way of profiling organizations, right? As to what sort of security controls do you have on your systems, how you communicate with your organization, how do you communicate with your third parties. And that's why you see a big escalation now on software supply chain attacks with SolarWinds and Cache coming into the play.
It's a really good point. Traditionally, we've all built multi-layered defences, big wall around the organisation, and then sat back and waited to see who came at us type thing, and then defended against that. But it's also the profiling side of it. And so it's probably one of the reasons why we started having an initial conversation with you, Ritesh, and CYFIRMA, is trying to understand the risk that we as an organisation are actually under. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, we, like most organisations, we've got cybermetrics which we measure, and we saw this huge spike in the number of emails and malware coming at us in that very first month. And the thing is, we didn't necessarily understand, we understood sort of why, but where it was coming from, what the target was. It was really opaque to us. What was your observations? What's actually really happened over the last 18 months in this region?
No, it's a great observation, Mike, and we have seen this with other industries as well. Surely, if you look at from some of those threat metrics, that has completely gone out of equation. You look at ransomware cases, we are seeing almost 400% increase in number of ransomware cases being orchestrated by cybercriminals. Look at phishing, 1100% increase from the same time last year or year before to what we are witnessing now is a completely different dynamics altogether. Malware cases are almost 900% up. So, of course, from overall cybersecurity, statistics, if you look at it, globally it has been reported that, organizations have seen almost 600% increase on cybercrime year on year, the way we used to witness.
I guess that's why we started speaking to CYFIRMA, understanding the risk that you're under and where that risk is coming from, I guess helps us target in. The questions that I started asking you, the countries we operate in, are they under any greater risk? The industry we're in, is it under, is it a high risk industry or is it a low risk industry? Are we a target of any particular campaigns, or the technologies we operate, are they a particular focus for anybody? You tell us about upcoming threats which are relevant to our organisation. You tell us about some of the vulnerabilities which you're seeing, etc. But what I find really interesting is some of the intelligence that you bring us, some of the out-of-band advisories that you give us. How does CYFIRMA start to pull all this information together? Because I know you give me a view of my risk, but how do you start to pull that information together?
So the way our platform is structured, if you look at it, it has got 4 logical layers. It has got a data collection layer where we have got 900 virtual agents. These are, you can call them as 007 of our world. These are automated programs which goes into some of those language communities, goes into dark web forums, goes into deep web, surface web.
So when you say language, you're talking, it can speak Russian, it can speak English, it can...
So our automated engines can actually understand 28 different languages on a real-time basis. And it can actually not only read those languages, but it can understand the contextual detail of the tone and texture in which a particular language has been spoken on those forums. We collect all that information and we bring them back to our centralized platform, where we add our AI ML engines to really process through and to really find a sort of connectivity, going back to our base principle of who are those cyber criminals who have got interest in you? Why are they interested? Their motivation. What do they want from us? Do they want intellectual property? Are they looking for PII, CII? What are they behind? When can they attack? Not all cyber criminals are ready all the time, right? And they do not have capability to actually launch all different type of attacks. And organizations truly have to understand, the readiness of cybercriminals. And cybercriminals do go about investing a lot of time and energy in building their capability. So their readiness is quite important. And again, applying that to how are they going to attack? Really the operational piece, as you spoke earlier, right? As to what sort of tools, techniques, methods, malwares, phishings, which they can potentially use against us. And we process that as part of our data analysis layer. Then we have got data dissemination layer, where we stack up our finding from management findings to going up to, strategic findings and up downstream, looking at operational findings. And then we have got our presentation layer, where you see our executive view, which is really meant for executives like yourselves to really quickly understand your external threat landscape. Management view is really meant for managers and senior managers who wants to actually start different initiatives based on the findings. And the operational view is really meant for operators, based on which they can sort of go about and take action upon some of those findings in a prioritized way, right? See, the whole purpose of this platform is really giving that risk-based view to organization as to how they can go about actually prioritizing their cyber posture.
One of the things I've enjoyed from some of the intelligence you provided us is being able to talk with real examples of the threat that's out there at the moment. We can all go through and we can quote statistics which are coming off our firewalls, how many emails we're blocking, etc. And for a lot of organisations, that's what they see. But they don't understand what's behind that. What CYFIRMA have allowed Zuellig Pharma to do is see a bit deeper into the threat. We know who the threat actor is. We know what's the target system. We know what the method is. We know often what phase of a campaign they're in, because you've given us that information. Being able to talk to that in some detail really brings the point home to the organisation around the threat that we're currently facing and what we need to do, and that's all everybody in the team needs to do to make sure that we're trying to mitigate that threat. And so some of that intelligence really helps us to get the message across. The other area of the organisations that I think, especially a DECYFIR platform, can start to play a role is the risk management teams within an organisation. It's normally just the cyber team or the technology team informing the risk team about it. They don't get to see, they don't get to feel, they don't get to understand in any detail. I think, if you take DECYFIR that level further and start to give your chief risk officer the visibility of what's really happening in the landscape, once again, it makes it real for them, and they can start to position the organisation appropriately to mitigate that risk.
Yeah, and that's the whole intent there, really enabling your CROs to kind of respond back to those situations in the right way. Our tool, truly supports that agenda, because the way we have gone about building this, the end customer was not always the CISOs or the cybersecurity team. We always want to marry this up into risk management, looking at compliance posture, and how do we bring all of them together into one platform where everybody is able to sort of enjoy a little bit of visibility, which they can sort of go about applying into their organization.
For Zuellig Pharma, our purpose is to make healthcare more accessible. Having uninterrupted service for us is absolutely key. What CYFIRMA has helped us to actually do here is two different things. One is strategically, you've helped us focus in on what those real threats are coming through for our industry. But the other thing that you help us with on a day-to-day basis is really that tactical thing. Your DECYFIR platform, you put a risk rating against every one of those threats and vulnerabilities that you're seeing. What it means is we can be particularly focused on a tactical level about going after those things which are happening now and are relevant for Zuellig Pharma across the 13 markets that we actually operate in. But with ransomware, You were sharing a little while ago with me that the threat it's posing to organisations. Do you want to share a bit more now?
So especially with ransomware, we understood the way the evaluation in ransomware industry is happening and the way cybercriminals are capitalizing on it. They are looking at really, leaving their footprint deeper into the organization. I think what is quite important for us as a defender, as an organization to kind of embed is how do we start to create those layer defense based on those external visibility which we provide and make sure that, those are embedded as part of your cyber strategy as well as your operational imperatives which you are running. In world of ransomware right now, you've got so many, like 27 different groups trying to capitalize on this. And having a visibility of that, which CYFIRMA provides, I truly believe that if organization goes about actually embedding that as part of their defense strategy, that's going to be helpful.
It is absolutely helpful. Zuellig Pharma's always had a strong cybersecurity posture. We've been quite traditional. You spoke about multi-layered defence. We've got multi-layered defence. But what we weren't seeing was the intelligence behind it. With CYFIRMA, because you've given us specific information, it enables us to take specific action. And that's been a real strength.
One of our aspirations has been always how do we go about actually providing that personalized view to organization, which is specific to their industry, which is specific to their technological stack, and which is specific to their geolocation where they're operating from. We are seeing different level of threat orchestration, starting with cybercriminals at a state level now starting to collaborate. They've got a bigger attack surface which they can actually potentially use in their favor. Their project management skills are sometimes better than us. The way they go about running a reconnaissance and finding their targets, finding gaps, finding ways of how they can come into an organization. And this is where truly, when we were thinking about CYFIRMA, we said to ourselves is that, we want to build a tool which can help organization to get that visibility.
You mentioned reconnaissance, and your company's given us a couple of examples of where IP addresses, thanks Ritesh, I appreciate them, appeared in reconnaissance activities of some threat groups. So this enables our team to get out ahead of the particular attack actually being orchestrated and actually putting defence in place or making sure we've got appropriate defence already in place to repel that particular attack. So the insight you've given us is really helping us focus our effort to what's actually going to happen, which has been priceless for us.
That is exactly the whole idea behind your early warnings and predictive intelligence is all about. How do we effectively provide some of those insights to organizations so that they can take action before cybercriminals come and harm us? Historically, if you look at it, Southeast Asia was never an interest for cybercriminals, but in last 3 years, surely that has changed. Cybercriminals are very much focused towards this part of the region, given all other elements like data, their collaboration, readiness of organization. Defense strategies are not very strong in this part of the region. And that's why, cybercriminals think that, this is an easy way for them to get hold of their target.
Yeah, your points are really relevant because the threat landscape is constantly evolving, and you've described how it's evolving in the region. But to keep up with the huge rate of change and the number of different vulnerabilities which are being discovered, the different types of malware, the phishing campaigns, etc. You need somebody to help you correlate all that data and to turn that into what does that mean for me? And this is where engaging a company like CYFIRMA has helped us at Zuellig Pharma, because you help take all that information out there, from geopolitical through to the regional, through to the different types of attacks which are taking place in the region, and you focus them in for us so that we can take specific action to make sure our company and those customers we serve and the clients we represent are protected in how we operate. It doesn't do away with your traditional cyber defence strategy, it enhances it, and it focuses it.
Yeah, and you rightly said, Mike, we always go about advocating our clients, customers, especially about changing the way they have been looking at cyber, where, insights and intelligence can be applied to your strategy, to your policy, to your process, to your people and technology. I think that will help us to solve this problem which we are dealing with right now.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure talking to you today, Mike, and thank you very much for coming along here.
Absolute pleasure, Ritesh. Enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to our further collaboration.
Thank you.